There had been various waves of feminism, and it's important to understand them to know their impact subsequently on gender justice. Feminism aims at gender justice. It aims for equality rather than superiority of women. At the normative hearts of feminism lives the belief that nobody should be at a disadvantaged position because of their sex. Everybody, whether men or women, boy or girl, are valued equally and are able to share equality in the distribution of power, knowledge, and resources. It seeks to see all people free from cultural and interpersonal systems of privileges and oppression and from violence and repression based on gender. The history of women is not linear, nor does it have a well organized structure. It is, in fact, an integral, though mostly invisible, part of a saga of civilization. Its threads are closely interwoven with those of culture, society, state, and above all, the lives of people. Untangling the threads through multiple layers of traditions is a fascinating enterprise. The first wave of feminism was in the 19th and early 20th century from 1910 to 1950, focusing on women's suffrage, property rights, political candidacy, and representation in the government. So it's basically impacted on these factors. The second wave started from 1960s to 1980s, focusing on reduction of inequalities in sexuality, family, in the workplaces, reproductive rights, and de facto inequalities and official legal inequalities that invariably happened everywhere. The third wave of feminism started in 1990s to 2008. This focused on embracing individualism and diversity. It arose because of a realization that women are of many colors, ethnicity, and nationalities, and it's important to know their cultural background and bring them in the mainstream. Fourth wave of feminism started from 2008 to the present days. This majorly focused on combination of sexual harassment, assault, and misogyny. The wave saw to the implementation of feminism in harsh realities rather than just developing the concept in books. Now the fifth wave. Journalist Kathleen Moran's concept of future feminism. It includes women showing their oppression through technology and making it, that is the technology, an instrument to be used in this movement for emphasizing these oppressions. Each wave of feminist movement, though in different era and ideology, has addressed issues of gender inequality, whether legal, political, or social. It also talked about educating women, not just about their rights, but also academically, so as for them to have a stand in society of their own and for them to be the efficient wheel along with men. Now I'll say some accounts of Garda Lemmer, that is a feminist historian. Garda Lemmer, feminist historian, rightly observed that women are ignored in history. There is a need to address the issues of gender equality to achieve an egalitarian society. The history of women is not linear, nor does it have a well-organized structure. Gender justice and feminism, the social issue that our society deals with, have turned political issues also. They have indeed gained popularity, but what they actually need is proper support and implementation. We speak a lot of these issues, but when it comes to really implementing them and supporting them, we back off. We really need to practice what we preach. Gender justice is important for achieving the Millennium Development Goals. The Millennium Declaration and the right Millennium Development Goals collectively heralds a division of more just and equal society or equal world. Social, political, and economic equality for women is integral to the achievement of all Millennium Development Goals. Now it's important to know, or there could be a question, that why we need gender justice or gender equality. There's a need to strengthen the capacities of women to achieve gender justice and equality. The problems of women in developing countries call urgently for new forms of analysis and for an approach that moves beyond utilitarian economics to identify a number of distinct components of human beings' quality of life, including life expectancy, maternal mortality, access to education, access to employment, and a meaningful exercise of political rights. Many feminists have discussed the issue of law and its impact on women's quality of life, asking how law has sustained and supported discrimination against women, and how, on the other hand, it might embody a commitment to sex equality. American law in the era of sex discrimination makes proposals for national and international legal changes and comments on the limitations of market mechanism in ending discrimination. According to World Bank report, gender discrimination remains pervasive in many dimensions of life worldwide. This is so despite considerable advances in gender equality in recent decades. The nature and extent of this discrimination vary considerably across countries and regions. The patterns are striking. In no region of this developing world are women equal to men in legal, social, and economic rights. Gender gaps are widespread in access to and control of resources, in economic opportunities, in power, and political voice. Women and girls bear the largest and most direct cost of these inequalities, but the cost cut more broadly across society, ultimately harming everyone. For these issues and these regions, women's rights is a core subject. In much of sub-Sahara Africa, women obtain land rights chiefly through their husband as long as the marriage endures, and then often lose their rights when they are divorced or widowed. Gender disparity in rights constrains the sets of choices available to women in many aspects of life, often profoundly limiting their ability to participate in or benefit from development. Women continue to have systematically poorer control over a range of productive resources, including education, land, information, health, employment, and financial resources. Such disparities, whether in education or productive resources, hurt women's ability to participate in development and to contribute to higher living standards for their families. Now, what are the women's rights issues in gender equality and justice? Women's rights issues are those for which women are the intended beneficiary, constituency, or object. Such a definition distinguishes women's rights from several related issues and rights. First, women's rights are defined here distinct from numerous policies where women have traditionally been expected to have greater interest, such as those pertaining to the family, children, and other private or domestic sphere of concern. Feminists all over the world are trying to focus on human rights of women. Their slogan is "Women's rights are human right." Women's rights are human rights is a proclamation for gender justice. Women have the right to food, to shelter, property, education, reproductive choice, social security, healthcare, and employment. Women have the right to political and religious freedom of expression, freedom from torture or slavery, and the civil privilege of citizens. Women have the right to a livelihood free from all forms of violence. Human rights work has traditionally been concerned with state-sanctioned or condoned oppressions, that which takes place in the public sphere, away from privacy to which most women are relegated and in which most violations of women's rights take place. The philosopher Jean Rousseau, for instance, thought that it was the order of nature for women to obey men. He argued that women do wrong to complain of the inequality of man-made laws and complaining, and claimed that when she tries to assert our rights, she is our inferior. However, countries agreed that women's enjoyment of right, including equal access to resources, is both an end in itself and essential to their empowerment, to social justice, and to overall social and economic development. As a result of the Vienna Conventions or Conference recommendations, the General Assembly in December 1993 adopted by consensus the Declaration on the Elimination of Violence against Women. Hence, cultural feminists include that women's action should not be judged by the male standards. Instead, women be respected for the class of values that they represent. They should be put in such roles where these values find expressions and enhancement. These values in the woman could be better utilized by placing her in a leadership roles. They would allow them to secure all these values in society, thereby contributing to a better world. They speak of women being put into roles they are best suited for. So this brings an end to the session on feminism and gender justice and equality, and I hope the session was interesting and you have a very big role to play in this women justice and equality. I thank you.